Without further ado, I'd like to hand over tonight's event to Paula Brehm-Heeger, our Eva Jane Romaine Coombe Library Director.
Thanks so much, David, and I echo David's welcome, and thank you for taking time to listen to our update. I am Paula Brehm-Heeger here on the slide, joined by David Siders, our Civic Engagement Coordinator, who was just doing some quick introductions for us. Also tonight, you'll hear from Daniel LaRossa, who is our project designer, our architect, and our close collaborator, research and planning, and Dan will do a bit of our presentation here tonight as well. On the next slide, we are joined by Karen Clemens, who is our 2022 Board of Trustee President. I think Karen is here. Karen, you want to give a quick shout out and hello?
I am here. Thank you, Paula. Hello, all. Thank you for having me. Like Paula said, I am Karen Clemens, the Board of Trustees President, and I am excited to be here and serve.
Thank you, Karen. Nadine Allen, our Vice President, is also going to try and drop by a little bit later, so you'll see her here. And if she does have a chance to drop in, she asked that we will give her a moment to say hello. Next slide, please. We have an agenda for what we're going to talk about here today. You can see we're going to do some library updates. Then we're going to get right into the fun part and do some exterior design updates. We're also going to talk about the public artist selection. Some of you may be aware or may remember this was part of our project. We have continued to move forward with that, and we will be discussing that as well. There are updates about our interior design and the always important project timeline. We do continue to move forward with this project and other projects despite a challenging environment, and we are, of course, still in the midst of some pandemic situation here and across the country, but we're doing our best to push forward. And on the next slide, you will see that this is an example of all that we're doing. So tonight we're, of course, talking about our main library, which is a centerpiece of our system. But we do have 40 branches, the main library, as well as a distribution center, which all in is about 1 million square feet of public space. If you remember back, if you've attended any of our sessions or you've read online or on our webpage information about our facility master plan, you may be aware that many of our buildings are older and have never been renovated or updated. That means really on average, a building in our system is about 40 to 45 years old, or since it has been last renovated or built. So here on this slide, you can see a couple of the other projects. Under construction is, of course, the downtown main library. It makes up about half of our 1 million square feet of public space. So we'll talk about that in more detail. But we also have the Madisonville branch. That's the branch that was actually originally constructed in 1925. It has not received any significant renovation or improvement. It does not have an elevator, so the only way to get into Madisonville, the current branch, is steps. So we are relocating across the street for the public space of the library there, and that will be happening this year. We intend to try and open that this year. We'll talk a little bit about the timing on some of these, but that is very much in construction. You'll also see Walnut Hills. This is another flagship project, a large next-gen library that was originally built in 1906. Again, that building, which is one of our original Carnegie buildings, 7 that we still in operation of the original, I believe 9. It was never renovated substantially, and so we are renovating the original building and adding on. We'll have more than 20,000 square feet there. You can see that we also are doing what we're calling a branch refresh. If you're familiar with our system and you've been over to the Anderson Library over in Anderson Township, that was a refresh from 2021. So it's not as extensive as these other projects that I've just talked about, but it does refresh some of the buildings that are several decades old. Green Township was built in 1990. So that one is happening and again in progress. Below that is a series of small pictures where we are in design on a couple of different things. We have the West End project. That building was originally built in 1961, and that is part of a larger project plan that we've just moved forward with. That includes the West End as well as the Sims Township branch, a 1991 building, and Forest Park, which is actually 1969. So West End and Sims are having renovation, and Forest Park, we're planning for a relocation and a replacement of the existing branch in a new location. We are working closely with the city of Forest Park, and we had information available at our December board meeting discussing the fact that we do believe Forest Park will then take possession of our current branch, but we will not locate the library there as we're planning right now. All those are in design. We also do like to mention some significant maintenance projects. You can see Avondale, Corryville, and Pleasant Ridge are here. Avondale, the building was originally built in 1913, renovated slightly in 2014, which did include an elevator. Corryville, originally built in 1907, renovated in 1996. Again, a renovation that included an elevator. Pleasant Ridge is there, originally built in 1929, and then renovated in 2012 with great help from the community as well. Those three we have because they are significant maintenance projects. So even though they have had some renovations in the last couple of decades, all of those buildings are very old. Two of them are more than 100 years old. And as I always like to say, if you think about everything in your life, if you think of anything that's 100 years old or more, most of the time it is something that requires substantial upkeep. So those are significant, and we are looking forward to improving and maintaining, doing significant maintenance on those three projects. So we have all of that going on, but tonight we are again here to talk about the downtown library. I do want to note before we move on, we have a little note about strategic investments. All of our libraries across the county, we are looking to give them dollars that local staff there can discuss with us what they think would make an impact on their community from the facility perspective. So if you've been in our branches, some of them have laptop kiosks where you can take a laptop from a kiosk, walk around, use it anywhere for a couple of hours. So again, we have many needs, but we are doing our best to have those go across the county in a variety of ways. I think I'm now going to turn it on over to Dan LaRossa, who's going to get to the main library updates and starting with that exterior updates and design.
Hi all, thank you so much for having us tonight. My name is Dan LaRossa. I'm an architect at Group 4 Architecture Research and Planning. We are a firm that does public libraries nationwide. We've had the privilege of working with you all. We're going into our 4th year here, starting with the facilities master plan, and are really honored to be able to work on the main library and the system-wide improvements. It's really it's rare to have a community and a leadership group that's as visionary as you all have, and so really significant kudos to Paula, your leadership team, and the board for making these strategic investments somewhat early for the main library, which was built just after World War II. So we're getting a little bit ahead of that 100-year renovation and improvement cycle in order to keep the building really wonderful and improve and maintain its utility for the community, both downtown and countywide. Before jumping into the design updates, which we're very excited to share, I did want to also mention that we can't do our work nationwide without incredibly strong local partners. So we have on the chat tonight, Jay Darenthal and Champlin Architecture, who are shepherding all of these projects into reality day in and day out. There's a lot that's already been going on that we'll talk about in more detail here, but it takes boots on the ground to really get the building all the way from the 2 sub-basement levels through the 7th story of the mechanical penthouse at the top into, again, fighting shape to go into its 2nd century. So with that said, we're just going to go ahead and jump in, and this is going to be an overview. We'll take it slow. There's a lot of building here. It's over 500,000 square feet across 7 stories and 2 city blocks. And so what we'll do is we'll just talk about the entire scope of the improvements, what's already been happening since 2020, and what you all are going to see continue to change over the next year and a half through 2023. So I'm saying previous here because we are excited to show updates and photos, but the wall of the North Plaza and the North Building has actually come down. If you all have been downtown recently, that whole garden space that was the children's garden is actually being turned into a plaza, but the North Building remains open and will continue to remain open through the duration of construction. in addition to the North Plaza upgrades, the other thing that we want to highlight here is that elevated plaza in the South building from the 1980s. That actually supports 2 underground levels of collections that have had ongoing maintenance issues for quite a long time now. And so we're going to show a lot of pretty pictures tonight, but a lot of the work is also, again, to improve the building envelope and systems for that long-lasting performance. So in comparison to the existing condition, we wanted to go ahead and start with a site plan. So again, knowing that the north building and the south building will remain, the goal here has been really for the past year of design work to make sure that we're working with all of the other improvements that are going on downtown and to turn what had been a somewhat inwardly focused building into a new public square for the library. So to that end, just for orientation, Vine Street is here along the bottom of this drawing. And then you can see 9th Street and the bridge running vertically on the page. We've got the Court Street development directly to the left, and then obviously Fountain Square and downtown further to the right. The goal here is really to be able to span 9th Street and create one equitable at-grade plaza across the whole frontage of the library, whether it's the 1950s original building, the 80s, or the 90s additions, so that the library can program that space for special events, but also just to have a very welcoming, low maintenance civic plaza for the community at large. And we're very excited that very soon the North Plaza will be opening. So these photos are quite recent. The landscape architecture firm, MKSK, did a really lovely job to actually, what you can see in these bottom 2 photos, to integrate, I believe it was 7 existing trees into a new design. So even though all of those old brick walls that were really very backward, they turned the interior of the library, its back to Vine Street. All of those walls come down, but we're still taking advantage of those beautiful mature magnolia trees to make that a really lovely space for the community, which will have direct access to Court Street as well, and all of the improvements directly to the north. So you can see in these photos, again, how much that's going to really open up the north building. And I think that that's particularly important because when the south building closes for construction, the north building becoming the temporary main, we will be looking at the potential for, there is actually a door right here that in the spring or in the summer, that could potentially become an entry point into the temporary main library as well. The other item we wanted to note is we do have Prior Street right here, which is actually, it's that service alley for a lot of the different commercial properties that front onto Court Street. As more restaurants and other types of amenities come in, that will continue to be heavily trafficked. And so there's a new art wall that we're putting in directly on the north side of the plaza. So we're really excited that, again, this extended plaza all the way from the 50s building up to Prior Street can become bounded by artwork. And you'll see how that's going to occur on the South Plaza. But on the North Plaza, we're actually doing this art wall that's about 6 feet tall. So we'll shield headlights, trucks, all those other things. You can see a view from the alley as you're walking south up here. But we're actually wrapping that wall with printed library cards from across the system. And then this will all be backlit. So it's going to be really bright and inviting and a lovely backdrop. People say Instagrammable moments. I'm hoping that this art wall will be here long past Instagram. This should be here 50, 75 years. But again, kind of taking the history of the library and really making it visible and creating just a lovely background for the spaces along that North Plaza. And then as we jump to the South Plaza design, this is what's really going to be starting construction imminently. And so that elevated plaza, the tight entry all the way in the corner, that's all going to change with this construction project, which is incredibly exciting. And so just to orient everyone, again, Vine Street along the bottom, 9th Street along the left-hand side here, what we're doing is we're actually creating a continuous flat plaza, primarily paved, that's going to be able to support a lot of different events throughout the year, everything from small groups to something like, I believe Blink is coming back next year. So hopefully maybe it will be under construction, but a part of Blink as well. And what we're actually doing is subdividing that space into what we're calling a glade here. So new trees along the south side to really keep people off of the edge of the 1950s building. And then we're actually moving the entry of the whole library 30 feet to the north. So it's really centered within this large, open, programmable plaza. But we're also then introducing new planting on the north side here and here. So those will buffer some of the high volume and speed traffic of 9th Street and really kind of frame that open space. Also, these 3 white rectangles represent there's a reinforced paved area so that there can be things like bloodmobiles and other types of mobile services that can be offered on the plaza, and there'll be power hookups for them as well. And then finally, we will certainly continue to have the bus stop at the corner of 9th and Vine. So that's the framework for this plaza, but what we're really excited to present tonight is actually, again, the second and third art pieces that frame this whole open, welcoming plaza space before we get into the library. And so to that end, we wanted to highlight the book sculpture, which was previously the book fountain. We're completely rebuilding and putting at the just to the right of the new entry. So it becomes kind of that touchstone. What we had before right on the plaza becomes directly adjacent to the front door. And then what we're excited to show for the first time tonight, I believe the press release went out today, is the selected artist for a new permanent sculpture installation along the north side of the plaza that we will reveal shortly. But before that, just wanted to give a quick design update for the exterior. So as we've talked about previously, but for those who haven't seen it, again, the entire plaza, all of that comes down to grade, so no more visual obstructions. And then we're putting in an entirely new glass wall that runs the full length of the double height space right when you come inside on Vine Street. So this will go from the floor all the way up 30 feet, and it will actually wrap the corner as well. That's going to allow really improved views into the library. So as previously the atrium was very enclosed, there was the ramp and the stair, and then the friend store up a level that really made everything kind of internally focused. We're really reopening the library and that atrium space out all the way to the plaza and the street beyond, and really allowing the library to show all of its exciting programming and spaces on the interior. And you can start to see that as we come a little bit closer here. So the vestibule, you'll actually see we'll have a nice little bright pop of color. We'll have the book sculpture. It will not be white. It'll be all of the lovely rockwood, I believe, pottery panels right there anchoring the corner of where the two buildings come together. And then that will all have, again, this full height glass that opens up directly into what you can see previewed here is a new stair all the way up through the building. The vestibule, a couple of, again, speaking to some of those maintenance items that Paula described. Often when the library has been open in the winter, we would get lots of gusts of cold air. So part of the background for this work is we'll actually be working to pressurize the building so that in the winter and the summer, we'll be pushing air very gently out of the building and have heat curtains that blow air down within this vestibule so that we're really keeping the warm air or the cool air in the summer inside the building and not having all of that outside air come in, which I think is just really important for thermal comfort for people who are using the library and the atrium. And one last piece, again, before getting to the big reveal, as some of you might have noticed, the crane is gone from the parking lot, and that's because all of the glass has been installed into the new skylight above the atrium. So one of the things that Paula was mentioning is the building from the 1950s and the 1980s. A lot of those systems are at the end of their lifespan. That includes not just the skylight, but also the elevators. And then there's been a lot of subgrade issues with, again, that elevated plaza. Just putting plants and trees on top of indoor conditioned space is quite challenging. And so we're fixing a lot of those issues. And the library has also, since 2020, been doing an energy retrofit. And so upgrading electrical and mechanical systems to, again, bring us all the way into the next generation of this building. And so that's not just the pretty pictures that we're showing, but all of the underlying systems to make it an efficient and really cost-effective building to operate going into the future for the public. So with all of that said, I'm going to take a pause and I'm going to toss it back over to Paula to discuss the selected artist.
Thank you so much, Dan. Just watching those slides, it's exciting to think about all that we have going on. And one piece of the renovation is this public art piece that Dan has alluded to on the plaza. So we have all this maintenance work going on. There's a lot going on underneath the plaza. All of that gives us the opportunity to really do some additions and not just renovations or maintenance. And the art that we're going to talk about is one of those great additions. So as part of the current renovations and the new plaza under construction, we did have in there, and Dan's slide showed a spot for some public art. We wanted to give this the process that it needed to really consider what would work well there. And anybody who attended any of the many public engagement sessions we had in 2019 as we were building our overall facility master plan, you may have heard what we heard, which is the public here in Hamilton County and in Cincinnati is very interested in having public art in their public buildings and in their libraries. We heard that directly at a number of different sessions. And here in downtown at the Central Business District, Dan also mentioned Court Street. You just go over Court Street if you haven't been there lately. There's a lot of art. There are murals throughout the city now, but Court Street has become an area where there are an increasing number of sculptures and other things that really reinforce this idea of public art. So the library is really pleased that we had the chance to work with Artworks. Many of you may know them. They're an award-winning Greater Cincinnati nonprofit that transforms people and places through investments in creativity and art. So with the support of this idea from the public that we should have public art and working with the trustees, and thanks to Trustee Clemens as well as all of our board, many of whom have been on the board long enough to have attended those engagement sessions and understood the need for us to consider this, we ask Artworks to work to help us develop a request for proposal from artists throughout the country, really. And they are fantastic. They did a wonderful job. We actually received 144 applications to that request for qualifications, that RFQ we sent out from 9 countries and 36 US states. So highly competitive field, and we worked with Artworks to come up with a process to review those. They helped us narrow that large field of 144 down quite a bit. Then we had library staff from marketing, facilities, public safety, along with design professionals, including Dan and many members of the design team, reviewed these submissions. We also worked with representatives from different organizations in the county to collaborate and offer their chance to weigh in on the submissions that we had narrowed it down with the help of Artwork. So all of that is to say that we came up with a short list of 3 finalists. Then library staff as well as design team members, and at that time, Diane Redden, who was the board president in 2021, we talked with, interviewed those design professionals, again, a rigorous process so that we could come up with someone who was really going to be great and a wonderful fit for this project. I will say all of the artists we looked at were amazing, so it was no easy task. We took all of that input and all of that feedback, and we did in the at the final selection that we have made is an artist named Jen Lewin. And Jen is someone who is going to create this monumental permanent public sculpture for our library in that outdoor area. You may not know it, but if you were at the Blink Festival in 2017, you may have seen some of Jen's art because she is an artist that really works in that space that Cincinnati and our region has become so known for, which is illuminated art and art that's really dynamic and interactive. So again, she has some connection to Cincinnati. She did participate in the 2017 festival. And if you go on to the next slide there, you can see that what Jen is proposing are these illuminated sculpture pieces. They range in size, I believe, from 12 to 27 feet, and they will light up, and during the day you will be able to see them. So they will play really well with everything that's going on downtown, Court Street, onto the corner, through Vine Street, and really support that idea of this area being an active, dynamic space for creativity and art. They will serve as wayfinding as you come down Vine because they are so tall. You'll be able to see them, clearly identify the library. And the other thing that is particularly intriguing about this particular sculptural piece is from inside the library, which, as Dan noted, will be an increasing amount of open air and light due to some changes right at the front and Vine Street. But many of you know the bridge is a place that is wonderful. Many people love to sit there. You'll be able to see these sculptures clearly during the day. And if you go to the next slide, also at night, they will bring a lot of illumination and style to the plaza. Again, outside in, but also from the inside out, which is just a unique and wonderful element that I'm really looking forward to. So we will continue to work with Jen, and I encourage everyone listening to be aware that we are going to have some community engagement opportunities. So that's going to help us work with the artist, so that she can refine her concept to really ensure that it represents our community here in Cincinnati and Hamilton County. These pieces may not be placed exactly where you see. They may alter a little bit because we do want to refine the concept. But this is the spirit of what we'll be doing. Again, reflecting that interest and also engagement and enthusiasm for illuminated art that we have seen so clearly develop in the Cincinnati area, and we've become nationally and internationally known for. This project will work in tandem with what we're doing on the plaza and the overall south building. So it will not be actually unveiled in reality until the main library is reopened, and we'll talk about that timeline later. But we are so excited, and again, please watch for opportunities as we move forward for engagement and discussion, so we really get these pieces of art that are going to be so significant for us as part of what the community really likes to see reflected when they say, we want public art in our public libraries. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you so much, Paula, for the big reveal. It's very exciting. And one thing I would recommend people do if they have time is to, and maybe we can actually put a link onto the library website as well, is to the artist's website. One of the things about these pieces is the 2D images don't do them justice. The color changing nature of them is very similar to Blink. They are dynamic and they can change, and the library and the artist can work to make special events for holidays or Blink or things like that. And so they have a real permanence. The silver part is actually brushed stainless steel, so they'll be really beautiful during the day, but at night they will really come alive. And I think, as Paula was saying, kind of define Vine Street as you're approaching on foot from over the Rhine, or if you're driving north or on the bus heading north from the banks. So we're really excited as a design team with this artist and all that the artwork will do to really announce the revitalized main library. So with that said, it's a tough act to follow, but we are going to try to show an update on the static pieces of the architecture, things that we can't be quite as dynamic as an artist, but as designers, Jay and myself have been spending quite a lot of time diving deep into this building. And so we'll give an overview today, but I do just want to kind of, again, ground it all. And this building is incredibly complex and large. And so a lot of what we've done, and we've talked about this in previous community meetings, is trying to kind of shake the building a little bit and understand how we can synthesize public spaces and programs and co-locate them in a way that is going to really create the best experience for library users. And so to that end, we just wanted to start with a floor plan. And so what we're going to talk through here is just how that first floor of the South building will lay out. It's a quite large space. It's 45,000 square feet, so larger than any other building, correct, Paula, in the system, just on the first floor. And so we want to be make sure that it's a space that welcomes everybody. And so to that end, I'll go through how the first floor lays out, but we've got Vine Street is now on the left, Walnut Street is on the right, we've got 9th Street at the top of the drawing, and 8th Street on the bottom. And so one of the things that we heard a lot during community listening sessions was the challenge of actually crossing 9th Street when the children's space was in the north building first floor with that walled garden. And then a lot of the other public spaces were in the south building that you would have to continually traverse across the road. So inclement weather, if you're coming, you know, as a family group, or, you know, siblings of different ages, that all of a sudden you were having to physically cross a street. And so what we've tried to do here when we've taken out the mezzanine level is really create spaces for everybody in the first floor south building, which would include a multi-generational branch with collections for everybody, new community meeting rooms, and then the dedicated kids and teen areas and story time within the 1950s building. I did want to mention before I go into the individual spaces here, the Friends Shop is moving to the warehouse location. They've kind of made that choice and are really liking being at the warehouse. And then also, I just wanted to, again, we'll talk in more detail about the 1950s building, but highlight all of the other improvements to this floor will include new restrooms as well, in addition to the restrooms that were upgraded in 2018. So with that said, taking a quick walk through the floor plan, we're going to maintain the approach from Walnut Street as well as the new revitalized approach from Vine Street. And then we'll enter through that double height space into the atrium, which will be really a gracious, welcoming, newly skylit with no leaks space that'll have marketplace and collections. To the north, where it used to be partially elevated with the stair and the ramp, we're actually putting in a three-way divisible community room. So this will be able to work for small group meetings of 15 to 20 people, or spaces for performances of up to 100 people. So it's really a highly flexible space, again, trying to stretch and make this first floor as flexible and almost a Swiss Army knife as possible. We're really excited that that atrium space is then all going to gather around a new social stair. So a space just for informal and impromptu hangouts, but also for speakers and other events after hours that could really become a gathering space for the community, but is also just welcoming and really focuses on accessibility and equity, that people don't all have to cluster at the elevator, but you can choose to take the stairs if you would like to. And that stair will go all the way up to the third floor. You'll see that. And we're really excited for how that will frame the east side of the space, where previously it was just kind of the book drop. And then you can see as we move through the marketplace in the 1980s building, we'll have the holds and self-checkout directly adjacent to the staff space. So very efficient still for staff for materials collection and handling. And then what we're going to do is move into the 1950s building. If I go to the next slide. Here we're really excited to create this intergenerational branch with new and popular materials, but you can also see highlighted in this magenta color, we're going to be installing meeting room pods. And so, you know, it's been a challenging couple of years, but we do see a future where people are able to gather in small groups and be able to collaborate. And so these are the types of spaces that haven't previously existed in the library that the library is investing in right now. They're actually on, some of them are already installed on the bridge over 9th Street for people to be, again, able to have a dedicated space for focused study. And so those are both in the overall public area, and then we also have a cluster of them that opens to both the teen and children's areas. And Paula, I'll take a quick pause really for you.
Thanks, Dan. I believe Judge Allen, Nadine Allen, has joined. She is our vice president of our board. Nadine, I just wanted to make sure you had a chance to give a shout out and say hello if you can at this point.
Fantastic. I want to welcome everybody to this wonderful session because I'm learning a lot, even though I've been attending many meetings. It's been somewhat in bits and pieces covering, 41 libraries. And so it's been kind of like a Rubik's Cube. So this for me is also, thank you, Paula, because I'm like, oh, okay. Now I'm getting a better picture of what we're doing and how we're going to accommodate the public. So please continue on, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Judge Allen, and pleased to have you. So Dan, back to you as you can update all of us because there is a lot going on.
Thank you so much, Judge Allen. And I would say that when you say the whole system is a Rubik's Cube, this building, I think that's an excellent analogy as well. And so again, trying to rationalize it and make it all very intuitive is the goal here. And so you can see there's this call out for a thematic wall. And what that really is it's going to be mostly shelving, but it's also something that will announce the new children's area right when you come in the front door from Vine Street. We'll look at some 3D views of that. But the intent is to subdivide the space so that, again, we'll have a dedicated children's area just as large as the current one with a story time as well. But that's actually then co-located with the teen space and a creation studio so that we're able to really have, again, different family groups be able to come in and use the space in a way that is, I think, more intuitive than, again, when we were kind of split across 9th Street. And one last item to highlight as well, there will be 2 new banks of restrooms on the first floor. So in, again, the public space, we're going to have 4 new toilets. I say fixtures, sorry, that's architect speak. 4 new toilets right when you come into the 1950s building. And then there will be new children's dedicated restrooms with appropriately sized facilities for kids as well. And there will also be a serenity room within that space. So, and finally, last but not least, I should have mentioned the reading garden. There will be, I will go back one slide. We're actually going to introduce a new door into the reading garden from the Walnut Street Plaza. Currently, the door is hidden around a pretty big storage area, and we want to make sure that people can use and access that space because it is magical. And so that will hopefully see some additional improvement and foot traffic as well. Okay, so moving very quickly, we did want to just take a minute here to talk about the original 1950s building was actually had some pretty trendy stuff that has been taken out over time, but not everywhere. It had this really beautiful Venetian glass tile that you can still see in quite a few places on the elevators in the 1950s building. And then also you can see here in the tower room on the 3rd floor, if you've ever had a chance to visit, some pretty funky, neat colors. And so in addition to the angled walls and other things that occur, that they're subtle, but they're there. And so a lot of what we've done on the design side over the past year is trying to find a way to inject some of that whimsy and playfulness back into the rest of the building. And so we've used this as a touchstone, and we really see that kind of allowing us to make a space that is exciting and dynamic and fun to visit, in addition to all of the wonderful core services that the library offers. And so with that as a baseline, the first photo or the first rendering that I'm showing is actually right when you come into that double height space. And so we particularly chose this one to say that when you come into the building, there'll be kind of nice flexible seating areas. There'll be someone to greet you right away before you would go to that community room. But when you come in the building, the artwork is so wonderful and exciting and dynamic, and all of the new trees and other pieces on the plaza, that we really see that connection to the plaza as kind of giving you that vitality and color. But we know that as you come further into the building, it becomes more important to use these bright colors as a way to really create a new perception of the library and tell the story about Cincinnati. And so what we're actually doing here is starting to put in some new colored glass and other items, including that thematic wall. So even though we have all of the very rich colors of the brick, it's a very earthy building currently. And then the donor wall as well. We want to just introduce some of those bright colors from the 1950s building into the 1980s as a wayfinding device, and also, again, just to freshen up the space. And that all then culminates in the most colorful portion, which is under that great new skylight that just got installed. And so we're really excited here. These colors are still in progress, but the design intent, we're really excited. We're kind of thinking of it as almost Cincinnati's jukebox. So building on the musical heritage and wonderful history of all these different types of musicians that performed in Cincinnati. We've actually been taking the library's catalog of King Records albums and color coding those, and are looking at that to make this custom glass guardrail that will really shimmer, and you'll actually be able to go up to it and kind of read different albums from different years as a way to really take that current atrium, which again is very monolithic and heavy, and start to make it something fun and inviting that you really will be drawn up those stairs to the different spaces on the second floor and then up to the third floor as well. So we're really excited about this. We'll be painting some of the brick just to brighten it up so that you'll get more light from that skylight coming down. And then in select locations, we'll actually be taking out some of the original brick guardrails so that you start to get hints of what occurs on those upper levels to start to kind of draw people up. Even though most of the improvements are on the first floor, there is, to Judge Allen's point about the Rubik's Cube, there is a conceptual framework and master plan for improvements to the building on the upper levels in the future as well. But this whole stair will be in this phase. And then just as we come up the stair, you can start to see how it really will connect in seamlessly to the second floor, up and past the closed stacks of the C and D levels. And then actually, when you get to the top, if you all have been to the third floor, there's that wonderful deck that exists on the west side. And this will actually kind of lead you directly out in that towards the west to those lovely views out across the city. And you can see as well that at each floor, we start to really connect with the new and improved elevators so that whether you're taking the elevator or the stair, it's an equitable and shared experience across the building vertically. Oh, one last thing before I go on this slide, the donor wall will also be getting improved lighting. I believe that the library is still taking new plaques and donations. So that will continue to play a part in the overall design of the atrium. So very quickly, coming all the way back down to the first floor, we did just want to show a couple of the other spaces as you move through the building. So this again is that new community room. So you can see here, this is in the open configuration. So one large space. Again, acoustically separated, but highly visible from the front door, which you can see right here, so that people really can know where they're going if there's a program or an event. But then you can see there are these tracks in the ceiling, and so this can be subdivided into three, separate rooms as well. And then also just quickly, the last view of the first floor. Again, we don't want to forget about the Walnut Street entry. And so what we're looking at here is right after you've come into the building from Walnut Street, we're actually looking to paint a row of columns in that same whimsical color gradient that we're going to have in the atrium as a wayfinding device. And so there might be some signage or other things that will be tied to it as we get further into the signage design process this year. But the notion is that this, it is a sea of columns currently. And so we're going to try to create a hierarchy so people you can say, you know, hey, head to the blue column, take a left, head to the green column if you're a team, take a left, so that you can start to find your way through the building more intuitively than it currently can be. Sometimes hard to orient yourself. And so using architecture and design as a way to help this become legible for the community. And you can kind of see here peeking out, it's still in design, but that thematic wall as well is just a way to kind of cue people in that there's something fun, whimsical, and for families around the corner. And then one other space we're very excited to show tonight is what is currently, I think this is a working placeholder title, the Community Story Center. And so taking your wonderful librarians from genealogy and local history, and we're actually moving a lot of their spaces and interactive collections, different ways to kind of pull local history out and make it a part, something that you can really access and interact with. That is going to be on the second floor, right at the top of that brand new stair. And so we see this as a place that you're just going to naturally be drawn up to and be able to really interact with the wonderful collections and the wonderful librarians at the main library. It becomes a focal point for the top of that stair. And so there's more to come on that, but again, a combination of physical and digital collections and a way to really interpret and reimagine the city and the project. So with
Dan,
all of that said, yes, go ahead.
one final thing that Folks who are familiar with the current main library or the South Building before we closed it may be wondering about the Veterans Exhibit that is on the first floor. We've been wanting to make sure everyone is aware we are a Veterans Memorial Library, and we do think that the Story Center will give us the opportunity to highlight and contextualize that element as well. So it will also be highlighted and moved to this area, which is focused on the community's history, living history, and also that element that currently is on the first floor, but a little tucked in the corner. So this is a great opportunity to bring that forward and make sure everyone in the community is aware of that as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Paula. My apologies for not mentioning that. And the other element to that is that this is just the view of the east side of the second floor of the atrium, but actually the floor reference collection, the other unique collections for genealogy and local history will be on the floor on the second floor as well, even all the way to that bridge that overlooks the new plaza and the double height space out to the west. And so we're really excited that the vast majority of the improvements, again, are the first floor of the South Building, but that we can take genealogy and local history and create really through something as simple as new carpets, new paint, some signage and some new technology, really revitalize that space as a draw up to the second floor. So it seems kind of like the perfect capstone to this phase of the building project.
Yes, and I think too, it's a wonderful example of how the design is, as you said, kind of leading people through the building. So the first floor will be very dynamic and active. The second floor will have this local piece. And then folks who are looking for that experience that they may have had at the main library, many parts of the second floor in particular will be somewhat familiar to them, if not aesthetically a little bit improved. And also on the third floor, we will continue to have the Stern Cincinnati room, which has our rare collections. And so we are bringing that forward and also kind of offering folks a chance to navigate through the building a little more effectively and find all the gems in a different way.
May I ask about, are you going to get to maybe discussing where the maker space is? The maker
Yes.
space? Okay.
Where the makerspace and the tech center are going to remain as they are right now in the north building. So we're doing a tech tower. It's a great question, and we definitely want people to understand that that will be, it's a sort of a multi-phased project, but we have found that during the pandemic, you know, we moved the tech center to the first floor of the north building, and we have found that people have really appreciated having the tech center and the maker space together in that north building and having that functionality there. As Dan noted, the children's area used to be on the first floor of that building. There was a lot of need then for family to walk back and forth across 9th Street. And I can tell you from having walked this building many years, it takes some time to get from the first floor of one building to the first floor of the second. You have to go outside unless you want to go upstairs. And that's me as a what our architect friends sometimes call a temporarily able-bodied person. Like I can move around, but I don't have a stroller and other things that maybe I'm taking with me. So we have found that marriage of the technology in that north building to be really effective, and we're leaning into that. And so using the south building in a different way, particularly that first floor.
Which actually perfectly segues into the conversation about phasing and all of the exciting changes that you all have been seeing from a distance, but you're probably curious about when all of this will go from being pretty pictures on a screen to a real experience that you can go and inhabit and enjoy. And so to that end, as always, the second to last slide is the all-important timeline about when this is going to occur. And so I'm happy to speak to this, or Jay, if you have any interest, if you want me to put you on the spot, since Champlin is doing such great work to shepherd all of this into reality. If you want to take it away.
Well, as you can see, thanks, Dan, we have a number of projects going on which has been discussed. We've got the North Plaza, the skylight and elevator. You can see by the timing shown in the schedule that those will be done this year, actually early this year. The actual South Plaza design and construction, that will be ready to be turned over to the library in by the end of the year in 2023. So in a nutshell, those are the dates and the times, and we're working feverishly to get to make that a reality.
Thank you so much, Jay. And I think the key on the bottom, the most important part, the most important row of this timeline is that the north building will be open throughout the duration of construction for continuous library service. So there will be a lot of changes. There will be heavy equipment and people digging things out and tearing things up, but at the end of the day, library service will be continuous. So again, as architects, we just draw the final picture, but your library leadership team is just really excellent at making sure that while we all make a mess, that you all are getting the exact level of service that you've always had from the library. So just a couple of quick wrap-up points is that the plaza demolition work is starting quite soon, and so we will see some sidewalk closures this month, and then the construction work really will begin in earnest by the middle of this year. And then again, we all know that it is a somewhat complex time, I guess would be an understatement. And there's all sorts of things up in the air in terms of construction and other items, but the goal is to reopen the building in late 2023. So I sometimes maybe speak too boldly. Paula, I believe that meets all of the library's expectations.
Absolutely. You make a great point that we are experiencing the same challenges many people are experiencing with projects right now in terms of supply chain and other delays. We have been very successful thus far in managing to navigate those and keep things basically on track. So this is where we're at right now. But if there's one thing that the last couple of years have taught us, that plans sometimes don't go as planned. So this is what we are shooting for and we believe will happen. But in the same way we've updated you tonight, we want to make sure everyone is aware of everything that's going on. And if any of this changes, most notably that time frame were to change, we certainly will make every effort to make people immediately aware of any changes. But the north building will remain open and services are there. You can get the books that you want. The collection is accessible through that building. We'll go and retrieve things, and books are on the shelf. Everything is going on. The makerspace is open. The tech center is open. There are kids and teen books and materials available as well. I think that is just about an hour. And David, I don't know if you want to round up with suggestions if people watch this not live and they want to follow up with getting more information or any responses, the best way to do that. I will say thank you. Thank you to Karen Clemens for stopping by, our trustee board president, and of course, Judge Allen, who is the vice president as well. Appreciate that. They're very engaged and interested in. I appreciate all of their support for all we're doing. David?
Yeah, thanks, Paula. And I just want to reiterate what you do see on the screen here. Keep your eye on our website for Next Generation Library at cincinnatilibrary.org. I take a look all the time. There's a wonderful photo gallery of what's happening at Maine and at our branches, as Paula touched on at the beginning of this presentation. And we just want to extend our gratitude for all of the engagement that our communities have had with us in shaping and designing these projects. It's all about you and our community and your public library. So keep your eye on our Next Generation Library webpage for all the updates. And we just thank you sincerely for being with us tonight.
And do take a look at the unveiling of the art designer from, I'm gonna have Paula going a little bit more depth, but blank has been chosen and you can take a look, and my friends are all excited about that.
Yes, I agree. And to watch that unfold, we will be keeping the community informed and we will engage on that. It just looks like a great project. We put our press release out today. If you have questions about that, let us know. And the slide deck here has the conceptual idea, but we do anticipate having updates on that. And we are really interested and engaged. Again, it just reinforces the cool Blink illuminated art, and I'm so pleased and honored that the library can participate in that part of the art scene that our region is becoming fairly well known for, I think. Thank you very much. David or Dan, Judge Allen, anybody have anything else? If not, we can say goodbye, and please keep watching our website for the updates and the art updates, as well as the overall branch updates. We have a lot of great things going on.
And thank you to Daniel for the wonderful virtual tour tonight.
Thank you all so much. It's always a privilege to work with you all.
Thank you, Paula.
Thank you.
David, and everybody
Thank you.
on board.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.